Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, I want to talk further through some of the targets that I named in last week's video that United are looking at for next summer, as of course, there are other news already coming out, even this far ahead, corroborating some of the information we put out about the positions that we're targeting, where we're looking at, and what the focus will be on next summer. But I want to talk through some of those names and break them down a little bit further as well. I also want to talk about Manuel Ugarte, spread even some more positivity on him, on things that I've been hearing about him, and get into it. There's actually a lot of future planning being done, a lot of things happening, and yes, the videos don't stop. We will keep going, keep pushing through, keep doing what we do, and bringing you all this news well ahead of time before January, when we could be active, as well as the summer. So starting with the targets, if you watched last week's video, if you watched even through the whole summer, you'll gather that one of the things I talked about is United looking at finishing the team, right? Under the new management, they're not looking at like this 3 in, 3 out, 3 positions, this and that. I said they would look at it on a virtually unlimited basis and say, what are all the things that we need to do to finish this team? So there's a lot of targets and positions on there that they've been looking at, racking up players and observing, admiring, watching, scouting, all of that they didn't address this summer. But that means they will be addressed in the future. That's the point of doing that, planning ahead. And so while there will be a lot more names that get added, a lot more people to look at, a lot more targets to consider, the concept remains the same as we went through this whole summer. If they'd had the money to, the time, or the possibility, what else would they have done? A left back, a center back, probably one or two more midfielders, at least one right now, and another forward, likely a winger. As I've said before, they were strongly looking at the right wing position. Now, it also came out from some people last week about United being extremely interested during the summer, as they were over Mike Olise, like we talked about, but unfortunately, he was just set on going to Bayern and to the Champions League there. United not in the best position to recruit him this summer in terms of the money, the other things they needed to spend, all of that, but they definitely looked at him as an amazing target. And so they'll be back in that arena later. Now, when it comes to wingers, one of the interesting things is, of course, a lot of the targets are right wingers. And one might be looking at that and saying, because I've gotten this question, well, if you have Ahmad and you had Garnacho, why do we want another right winger? Well, there's a couple of problems that we have here, which is, number one, prior to this season, as I've said before, Ahmad had not played that much football. Now, he looks good starting out, and I'm not denying that. I think he's a right winger of the future. At the same time, there's the flexibility that Ahmad could, in the end, become a little bit more of a midfielder or a 10. Garnacho is playing on the right mostly because that's where the minutes are, that's where the time is, and that's where he's been mostly effective. But in the long term, are they convinced they have a starting right winger yet? Probably not. And if they did sign one, maybe that would give them more ability to move Garnacho back to the left, because at the moment he has been the starting right winger for United. So it's certainly something of focus. Either way you look at it, between Rashford being out of form, Garnacho in his first, second year really, fully in the team, maybe I guess third, because the first year he was there a lot, but really second year fully starting often, and Ahmad, who barely has gotten into the team. They don't have super established top-level wingers right this moment, enough of them. And certainly, so that is still a focus, and that's why. Left back, I'll share some news here. I've said many times that I'm not sure Malacia will ever get back to the level that he's supposed to. I stand by that still. I've still not really heard anything to disagree with that, and really more to enforce that it is going to be hard to say that Malacia will ever be back to the level of what United may need as a fullback. So that cuts their targets way down there, or their numbers way down there. With Luke Shaw, you know, he gets a lot of stick over his injuries, over the things that happen. The problem is, a lot of it, nearly all of it, comes from, it's not the first time I've said this, but it comes from his major leg break. There's very little he can do about that. His body is just not in the shape that it has to be. There are structural changes. There's from the surgeries and things that have happened then that just will lead to him being more prone to injuries. So a left back is an absolute must, and I think even in January, and that's where we'll start first on our targets, because there's a few good ones to really look at here. And then center back, we know in the long term, Harry Maguire going into the last year of his contract, do they let him walk for free and sign somebody? Gerard Braithwaite being probably top of the list, but potentially more. They do want a left footer. They do want someone big. They do want someone fast. That's why they wanted Gerard Braithwaite, that physical profile in there. We've seen a little bit of I got a lot of stick for this over summer talking about on some of the lives that Lisandro Martinez is maybe our best center back, but is also a limited center back. We're seeing that in the first few games of the season. Yeah, he's out of form. He hasn't been that good, but you're seeing some of the limitations in terms of speed, in terms of the physical traits that you want to have with him, that you want to have paired with him. When Lenny Yoro comes back, I think they make a great partnership. But you want someone else in there who brings speed, pace, and power, because you don't always have that from the other position. So that would help there. And so that should still be a target next summer when Lindelof walks, a center back, if they can get the budget to it. Can they extend Maguire and then sell him? Yes, obviously that leads to the complications over loyalty bonuses and things like that. But we'll see. We'll see where they go. It depends on how Maguire does this year as well. In addition, like I said, we went over the wingers, we went over the fullback, we went over the center back. There's also the midfielders. And in the midfield, Casemiro and Eriksen would expect to leave next year. And that gives you at least needing one more midfielder. And in the long run, also planning for that potential Bruno departure, or moving, maybe not departure, but moving on from him being the absolute of the team in the midfield. Remember, they extended his contract, but just for one more year. They didn't want to deal with it this summer. They don't necessarily want to replace Bruno next year, though if he wants to leave at that time, then they'd have 2 years left. They'd have good value. But, it enables them to have a little bit more time to build up the base of the midfield in the spine a bit more. So I want to talk through some of the targets there. And the focus continues to be on young players. And I think that's the important part of it. Young players for now to start, young high potential players, and then round it out with your top players. So let's look at some of the targets. Two of the names I want to discuss, Kirkis and Ait-Nouri. Now, you're not seeing amazing stats on here from them. Part of that is the nature of the teams that they're in, but I do want to show a couple other ones that are really interesting. Couple of things that do stand out. Both Kirkis and Ait-Nouri are very, very solid tackling department. Kirkis is pretty good defensively. He's a very young player, more new into the team. Physical tools are all there. Fullbacks are hard to judge on stats. I'm not going to lie to you. They are difficult to judge on stats because it's so prone to the stylistic nature of the team that you just have to watch them more than, I think, almost more than any other position. You've got to watch fullbacks to know what they're doing, what they're providing, because in the modern game, fullbacks can be so different. Fullback to fullback, it's hard to tell. Possession adjusted, Ait-Nouri shows up pretty well. Neither of them really standing out, but again, part of that being on the teams that they're on. Ait-Nouri is certainly creative, and if you've watched him, you'll know that too. Ait-Nouri is a very creative player. Kirkis, I think, is a very, very solid defender at left back. I think you can see that if you watch him as well, and you can sort of see it in the stats, though not that well. But both, of course, would be good options. Good young player. Ait-Nouri more creative. Kirkis, I think, more solid defensively. But here's what a couple of the ones that I wanted to share, because there's two other names we talked about over the summer that I think remain targets, and there's been a report on Anthony Robinson. Anthony Robinson shows up incredibly on things. Now, we've seen Anthony Robinson a few times against United. He's a very good player. Possession adjusted, one of the best, most defensive, high volume players, high volume of aerial duels, interceptions this guy does it all as a fullback statistically. And that's for Fulham. Now, so this is definitely a player I would say, yeah, let's keep an eye on him, because United have liked him. He's young, he's talented, he's physical. We know he can up to the demands, as with Kirkis and Ait-Nouri, who are playing in the Premier League. Very, very solid player. If they could get him, I think this would be an incredible choice at fullback. Someone who you don't lose that defensive solidity when he plays, but who can also do a lot. This is one to watch. I was surprised because, like I said, when I look at the stats on a lot of these fullbacks, I was like, it's hard to really judge them off of this, but Robinson's stats showed up exceedingly well. I was quite surprised by that. And then the other one is Gutierrez. We've talked about him before. United were interested. Madrid have this buyback. He had an injury before summer. Maybe it put some clubs off. He doesn't show up much on these defensive stats, like at all. But attacking, he's very, very involved in stylistically and where he plays. So point of those is really just to give you a little bit of an idea of the style of player that they are. Robinson, volume, aerial defender, does it all. Aït-Nouri a bit more creative. Gutierrez a bit more creative. Kirkes a bit better defensively. So a little bit of different. And of course, they're all young players, so it's worth watching how they play over the course of the season and what they look at. But if you're looking at who would be the most ready, it's got to be Anthony Robinson. If you're saying who could come in January and make a difference, and that's where I think that story gives I would give a lot of credence to that story, is Anthony Robinson. I would be surprised if we get long stretches of Luke Shaw being healthy and at the top level, and again, if Malacia ever was, and I really do think we are still suffering a little bit from not having a fullback in there who is left-footed naturally in that position. I think we would serve a lot there to add to that. So Anthony Robinson, definitely, and I think if you watch him, you can agree with this is not just a stats thing. I think a lot of people are really high on Anthony Robinson right now. And that report makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It makes a lot of sense. It's something that, would definitely be better. I think it would be really great to have to have Anthony Robinson in there at left back. I think it would make a big difference. So yeah, he's one I would definitely keep an eye on, but I would keep an eye on all of those. And then obviously we'll see if more targets get added. But yeah, that report on them in January, I strongly keep an eye on that because we could be active then and we might need to be active then. Midfielders, obviously there's kind of two different types of midfielders that United have been looking at. And that they may need in the long run. And the number one is a bit more of a deeper, like controller midfielder, right? Someone who, because you only have Ugarte and Kobbie Mainoo really who can play in kind of a deeper role. You want someone else to pair potentially with Ugarte. You'd want someone else to potentially pair with Kobbie Mainoo, so you have better rotation, more options in there. And so there's a couple of names that I think, stand out on this specifically in terms of young players. And that's what I'm going to focus on still for now, is on the young players that I know United have been looking at. And the first one is Adam Wharton. I can tell you for the fact that United are interested in him, that they've been watching him. Everybody knows what kind of player he's going to be. The stats, it's hard to see him on the charts yet with a player like him. He just doesn't have that many minutes. But stylistically, since he's moved to Palace, top passer from deep, top progressive passer, but also very active defensively, recovering the ball, linking a play, passing it towards goal, disruptive. That's the type of player that he is. A deeper, controller, moves the ball around well, controls it, progresses play, but is very tough defensively as well. And at Blackburn, he had really good numbers in terms of ball retention and things like that, as well as a really high rate of defending. So we know he's kind of can do it all as a midfielder, left-footed, 19 years old, definitely one to watch, a player that United are looking at, that a lot of clubs are watching, and I think there's going to be a big race for next summer. You could pair him with Ugarte, you could pair him with Kobbie Mainoo, you could pair him with practically anybody, because he's that type of midfielder. Another one that I think is worth watching is Hayden Hackney, that United have been watching. He's playing at Middlesbrough under Michael Carrick, and honestly, the best comparison to him is Carrick. That is the best comparison to make to him. He is that similar style of player. He's a strong defender who gets around, not diving in, destroying, flying around the pitch, but with intelligent anticipation, gets around to the right positions, defends well, wins well, passes it extremely well, is excellent on the ball. Excellent, and I mean excellent on the ball. You can see with some of his dribbling numbers, he's very good on the ball, very good at moving it around, very under control. This is a player defended great in defense. You can see in ground duels and possession, he's really good. This is a player who fits a very well-rounded defensive midfield mold model in say like the Matic, Carrick kind of mold than, you know, your Conte or Ugarte type of mold of a destroyer. Again, a player you could pair with Ugarte because his passing, dictating of play, dribbling is excellent. Similar to how you might have got when if Fred and Matic were both like in their prime at the same. Not that that was like a particularly good experiment because both of them were kind of had their faults, but in a similar way to Matic and Conte when they were at Chelsea, of course. So you saw that dynamic work quite well for their team. But yeah, that's probably a better comparison than Matic and Fred. But you know, but he could have certainly 100% also play with Kobbie Mainoo and probably would more. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that he could fit in here, a young player. And it isn't a joke to compare him to Michael Carrick. The only thing he lacks is a little bit of his height. But in terms of his stylistic profile overall, very, very much Hayden Hackney, a player who can pass, who can move the ball from deep, who's a really plus defender, and top on the ball, very smart, very intelligent defender, and ball player as well. So that is one I would really watch. I would love United to make some kind of move for young players like that from the Championship who can step up. I think it would be good, but definitely somebody that I would keep an eye on for United as well if they want to move in the midfield. And you know, and I don't think that going after getting Ugarte, spending that kind of money on him, having Bruno, having Mount, having Kobbie Mainoo, I think getting a good young player in with this kind of potential like a Wharton or a Hackney is a better move than going to try to buy some established star at this point in time where you don't know exactly where they're fitting yet. Where someone like this could get time to work into the team, you know, in the future. So this is one I keep an eye on. In terms of attacking players, Sver Nipan, Rosenborg played against him. Interesting player. He's a little bit of, right now, I would say a bit of an in-betweener in terms of attacking, whether he's a midfielder, whether he's an attacking midfielder, whether he's a forward. You know, as a midfielder, you can see the numbers on his shooting, receiving the box, and dribbling are very, very high. It's hard to get a measure of the style of him totally. Obviously, none of us have watched him that much, but he's 17 years old, good physical frame. And I would say more in the vein of an attacking midfielder / winger, a bit more of a forward type of player than you know, he's not going to be sitting deep. And so, you know, that stylistic type of player is there. And yeah, so that would be him. And then I'll come back to that. So that would be just another one to keep in mind. You know, I couldn't find anything on the other name that I was interested in looking at was Franco Mastantuono. We talked about him, the Argentinian midfielder, also another sort of attacking midfielder. So when we look at, you know, the names of, you know, potential midfielders, we've talked through the left backs, we've looked at midfielders. There's sort of two profiles. And I think the deeper one might be a little more of a focus this summer. This coming summer, almost a year from now. I think that might be more of the focus, but it could be both. Again, it's not limited. If they can get everything done, then they will. But I also think, again, for now at least, where we are thinking through some of these younger players. And I think that more, you know, I know for a fact that they've already, you know, had discussions about players like Adam Wharton and things like that for the long term. So someone like that or Hayden Hackney makes a lot of sense. And I would lean towards very, very early on that it would be someone more in that vein, at least for now. On the wingers front, I've talked about a few players, number of younger, wingers. For now, I'm going to stick with, Asani Diao is a name that I've mentioned a long time ago. There's Nusa, there's some other ones. But I wanted to stick with Diao in particular just because I could find something on him. It's sort of an interesting player. There's been some more talk of right wingers, coming out and United looking at wingers. This is just an interesting one because I do know that United were quite interested in him. Not a lot of minutes yet. Very raw player for Betis. But, stylistically, what you get from him, what you can kind of see from this, he's a player who presses really well, defends from the front. He's tall, 185 centimeters. That's big, right? He's tall. Physically coming, at 18 is quite up there. A similar mold to like young Rashford, but maybe a bit stronger than Rashford when he was first and young and very skinny. But in the similar vein of type of player on the ball, exceptional dribbler. That's what he focuses on. Gets the ball, dribbles, takes it on, goes to try to score, presses really well, very energetic. And if you look at kind of his FB ref on this, it's the same. You can see very, very plus defender from the front. He does a lot of defensive work, gets good touches, good goals, good XG, does not pass. Okay, so you can think of him as a bit of an old school winger in that respect, or your traditional take on winger, gets on the ball, look at the passes completed very low. Now, some of that's just stylistic, but much more involved in getting the ball, getting to the goal, getting the ball, getting to the goal, getting the ball, getting to the goal. A bit more direct, but also presses well in defense from the front. So not someone that we just have to watch more, that I think would be worth watching, see how he comes along as a player. But he has someone United have tracked for a long time. I mean, for a while now. And we'll have to relook at the list of wingers because a lot of them that were young that they were interested in, I would say, are not on the list anymore. Guys like Jeremy Pino, he had a big injury. Olise obviously moved. That would have been the top target there. So that's a list that I think will develop through the year. There'll probably be other names that'll come out. But yeah, so I think that's all very interesting between, how they're targeting players and some of the ones they're looking at. And again, I'm focusing right now on the younger players. There's probably more. Not probably, there's 100% more. There's probably more established players that they might consider as well. Those decisions will get made between, in January, potentially in December for something we might need in January, but that would probably be a left back, if anything. And then, more like January to March, making the final decisions on what types of players they're going for in those positions, whether it's younger, more established, etc. And a lot of that's going to be based on how United perform. If Rashford, Garnacho, Ahmad kick on, it's going to change the type of winger that they want. However the midfield works out might change the way that they dictate things. If Mount has a good season and Bruno has a good season, they might say, good, we don't need any attackers right now. Let's get another deep midfielder for sure. But if we're struggling, if there's difficulties there, then that would change things too. So a lot up in the air. How does Maguire do? And what do they make the decision with him as well? A lot of that will be up in the air. But for now, these are a lot of the players they're going to be looking at for the future. Moving on to Ugarte. I wanted to talk about this one a little bit because obviously it's sort of a funny thing. I was teasing, on Twitter about it because I was waiting all week for this because I knew it was going to happen. That Manuel Ugarte was selected to start, played 78 minutes for Uruguay on Friday night. He'll probably play tomorrow, though he may get some limited minutes. Playing under Bielsa, one of the highest energy, intense systems in football, after comments that he may not be fit. Here's the thing. He's fit. He's very, very fit. And one of the things that I can share just in complete, total positivity for the player is that this is not my opinion, this is a fact, that the people at United are already, from the limited amount that they've seen of him, incredibly impressed with his physical flooring, his physical levels, his energy, and his aggression. And it's just all of those things. So, one of the things we spoke about last year where I said, look, this isn't all on Ten Hag, is raising the physical flooring of the team. Now, for some reason, a lot of people online have a weird idea that Manuel Ugarte is not a physical floor raiser. It was like people were so fixated on Amadou Onana that only he would raise the physical flooring of the team, and that's just not the case. There's a lot that goes into the levels of physical flooring. You look at like Liverpool's midfielders historically, they were not Amadou Onanas in terms of these tall, long-legged physical players necessarily that you look at like that. But they were physical players, very, very physical players, and they have them now, physical players. Ugarte is one of those. And his physical levels are from the people that, have seen him already. And from the limited time that they've had with him, United are looking at like, holy shit, we got this exactly right in terms of a very, very, very high-level physical athlete. With crazy fitness levels, energy, physicality, all of that, fantastic. He will raise the bar physically. Does it mean he's the fastest player on earth? No, it doesn't. But that's not necessarily what's important when you're talking about these things. And I think that for some reason he's gotten completely, underrated in that respect because of people's perceptions online. When you watch him for Uruguay, monster. Like he said, it's a fight without the ball, but he is a battler. Strong tackler, aggressive, physical. I mean, he had a fantastic game, made some amazing tackles in that game. But also one of the things that's gone on the radar is his passing. Because people think he's a bad passer. He's not. He's a player who does not like to try to take risky passes between the lines in the midfield. He just doesn't do them. That doesn't make him a bad passer. He's actually exceptional in his switches of play, things like that. So I think he's gotten incredibly underrated by people. But he is fit. He is ready to play. He will be managed in the international break properly. He knows that. The people at Uruguay know that. To make sure that he doesn't overplay either and that he is ready on those levels to come back. Now, obviously, he's had not an enormous amount of time in training with United, but he'll have a few days under his belt. And I think that I can't say he should start. Ten Hag has autonomy over picking his starting lineups. I said that in the last video. That's a fact, but I think he should start. It's against Southampton. I think it's the best time to get him into the team and get him going. And I really don't think you have anything to lose if you've looked at how things have gone with Casemiro this season. You just have to play him. And I think it would go a long way because the comment Ten Hag made on him was stupid. It was. It was wrong. It was stupid. He shouldn't have said that. And it is not something that everybody's in agreement with. That is for sure. He shouldn't have said that, and that's fine. It happens. Sometimes people say stupid things. But it's still up to him whether he's ready to be in the team, to fit into it all. But with the type and style of player he is, you just ask him to do what he's good at, and he will do it better than what Casemiro has been doing in that team. And I think that against Southampton is the perfect time. So hopefully he will start. But physically, he's ready. The other factors, that's up to Ten Hag. So yeah, that's what I have for today. I hope you found this to be an informative video. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it exciting. I want to do more over this week. It's been the international break coming right after the window ends is such a hard time to do stuff for these videos, Obviously, I know some of the interest goes down after the window and all that. It's just natural. But at the same time, international break has been it's so obnoxious, just right 3 weeks into the season, right after the window, trying to figure out everything that's going on, and you kind of fall into a hole in terms of football of just wanting to come back so we can get into a rhythm of the season. So yeah, hopefully very soon we'll be back with more things and more stuff through this week and next as United get back into football and we get into two-a-week games and all of that. But I will have more this week on some other aspects. I want to do a live this week since we haven't done one post the window to just talk about all the different things going on, answer questions on all these targets, talk through some more of the things I'm hearing just kind of around the club and the team and all of that as we've gotten into the season. I know people are wondering about all that kind of stuff too. So that's what I have for today's video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.